Welcome back to Washington Journal. We're joined now by Representative Glenn Ivey, is a Democrat of Maryland and a member of the Appropriations Committee. Representative Ivey, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about the reconciliation bill. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I have deep concerns. I think some of your callers have reflected that so far this morning already. When you combine the reconciliation bill, the tax cuts and the like, it looks like it's going to increase the deficit by around $4 trillion. $698 billion in cuts to Medicaid. That's by the Congressional Budget Office. That's not the Democratic talking point. That's what they said they're seeing. Tens of millions of people kicked off of health care coverage, cuts to school lunches. I mean, it's across the board. So we could go on for a long time for the consequences of what this bill would do, but those are the top line numbers, I think, and that's why we don't like it. That's why we're opposing it and hoping we can block it or at least redirect it.
In the president's meeting yesterday with House Republicans, he was emphatic that Medicaid would not be cut. He said, according to people in the room, don't F with Medicaid. What do you make of that? Do you believe that that sentiment?
I mean, obviously not. Like I said, the Congressional Budget Office has said it's around $700 billion in cuts. There are independent entities, including conservative ones, that tag this around those numbers. The reason he wants to pretend like that's not going to happen is because the cuts to Medicaid are so deeply unpopular across the country, not just in blue states, not just in blue jurisdictions, but in red jurisdictions as well, because they know that means their hospitals are going to shut down potentially. They're going to lose doctors and nurses. There's going to be a dramatic contraction in the availability of health care and an increase in the number of health care deserts across the country, including in the states where the Republicans look to for their key base of support.
So what can Democrats do about it? What's the plan?
Well, we've been targeting Republicans, really, who are, I think, most at risk with respect to the impact of these and living in districts where they won by relatively small margins in the last election cycle. I think you had Greg Casar on earlier today talking some about that, and some of the other Democrats who've been going around and doing meetings in or town hall meetings in other people's jurisdictions that are areas where Republicans have either refused to hold town hall meetings or been circumspect about trying to do it. But we think that when the information gets out, we win on this issue, and that's why the Republicans are trying to duck it, avoiding town halls, holding meetings and hearings in like 1 a.m. in the middle of the night and that sort of thing.
And have you heard anything, Congressman, about a timing for a possible vote? Do you know anything? Has leadership said anything to you?
I know the Republicans have been going back and forth about when they can try and get this done. They're trying to see how fast they can pull together the votes to get it done, if in fact they can. And I think it'll be driven by that. But I'm not privy to what's going on within the Republican caucus.
Now, as you know, the Moodys has downgraded the U.S. credit rating, and they pointed the blame at, quote, successive U.S. administrations and Congress failing to agree on measures to reverse the trend of large annual fiscal deficits and growing interest rate cuts. Is this a bipartisan failure?
Well, I think you can certainly say that this deficit's been growing over a period of decades now. I think Bill Clinton was the last president to actually balance a budget. So it's been growing for a while. I think the key point here in the timing for Moody's announcement was they wanted to get that out before this vote takes place, especially the vote that would add 3.7 to 4 trillion more in the current deficit. And I think the point's well made.
The Bipartisan Policy Center recently released a report showing that your home state of Maryland was among the top 5 states with taxpayers claiming the state and local tax deduction. That's SALT. The current cap is $10,000. Republicans are arguing right now over raising or eliminating that cap. What's your view on that?
Well, I think it needs to be reinstated. And, to your point with respect to the debate within the Republican caucus, you have a number of Republicans, especially in the New York area, but not solely, who desperately need to have the SALT tax issue addressed. The Republican caucus is balking at that, and that's creating problems for them. But, as I mentioned a minute ago, they live in the districts that the Democrats are targeting because we think we can win those seats back among others, and retake the majority in the House and in the midterm elections next year. And what they do here on this vote is going to be pivotal.
Representative Glenn Ivey, a Democrat of Maryland, is with us for the next 20 minutes. If you'd like to ask him a question, you can call in now. The numbers are Democrats 202-748-8000, Republicans 202-748-8001, and Independents 202-748-8002. Representative Kilmar Garcia, who was deported to El Salvador last month, is from or lived in your district. Can you talk about the efforts that you are going through right now to get him back in the country?
Well, it's largely focused in the courts, and as we've been watching, there's been litigation about that. It began in court, I think, about 2 months ago. The Trump administration acknowledged that they had made a mistake in deporting him and sending him to El Salvador because a previous judge had said you can't deport him and send him to El Salvador because they wanted to try and keep him away from MS-13, but that's exactly what the Trump administration did. Having acknowledged that they'd made that mistake, they're now refusing to bring him back, even though you've gotten court orders from the Supreme Court and the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals saying that he should be brought back. I think the Supreme Court said that they should facilitate his return. Judge Harvey Wilkinson in the Fourth Circuit used much stronger language to say just how un-American, frankly, this really is. People should get their due process opportunity to have their day in court, and the Constitution says persons, not citizens, so it applies to everybody that's here. He didn't get his day in court, and they sent him down to El Salvador, and they're dragging their feet on bringing him back. So currently you have the district court judge, Paula Zenas, who's, I think, putting together a factual record so that when we get to the point where they have to hold people in the Trump administration in contempt, there'll be a factual basis to support that and carry it up when it goes up through the Court of Appeals and to the Supreme Court.
I want to ask you about your colleague, New Jersey Democratic Representative LaMonica McIver. She was charged on Monday for allegedly assaulting law enforcement officers outside an ICE facility in her district. Your reaction to that?
I really can't comment on that because I'm on the Ethics Committee here in the House, and my expectation is that's going to be a matter that ends up before the committee in relatively short order. So I can't say anything in public about it, certainly nothing that would suggest that I'm prejudging the merits of that decision. So I'll have to wait until after that case has been resolved to comment on it publicly.
All right.